it's hard for me to learn from somebody that was always given something or always had it easy.
Yep.
I learned the most from the guys that crashed and burned and then built themselves up brick by brick.
Coach Nate.
What is up, man?
How you doing? How you feeling?
Good, brother.
Good.
Good to be here.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm excited to be here too, man. We just obviously sat down with Byron. I learned a lot about his story, and I'm excited to learn about your story because, for obvious reasons, you know, I want to get to know you a little bit more. But you guys, you're like the dynamic duo. Like when it comes to different coaching styles, the way you speak to people, it's like the yin and the yang. Byron's the one just on them, just like down their throat, like just get it done. You're a little bit more calm, but I know you have that side to you as well. So it's like interesting. I want to learn a little bit more about.
Yeah, honestly,
you know,
I think sometimes I'm scared of it. So
yeah,
that's why maybe I'm more calm.
Exactly. Like I'll
may live that a little bit too long.
Yeah, take a little more chill approach.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, obviously, we're talking about fitness, but I want to learn more about your backstory and kind of, you know, learn more about your upbringing and things that you went through, but how does that tie into what you do now when it comes to fitness?
Yeah.
So kind of just take us through, you know, as deep as you want to go when it comes to your upbringing and kind of how you came to be who you are today.
Awesome. Yeah, so I'm from the Big Island of Hawaii, from Kohala, and it's basically an outdoor gym, right? As a kid, you're growing up outside, you got the ocean, you're diving, you're running around big fields and up mountains. And so, you know, I had that already, you know, in me growing up. And then about when I was probably 6 or 7 or so, my parents separated, and my mom decided, hey, I'm going to go back to Honolulu, which is a big city, right? So I started going back and forth between them both, and I started to notice that the way I looked, the way I dressed, the way I spoke, because there is an accent. The islands have different accents.
Really?
Right away they know, oh, this dude's a country bumpkin.
Oh, snap.
So it started, I really wanted to fit in, so I started to do maybe a little bit less of the outdoorsy stuff, started to pick up basketball and a couple of things, and
well, what's like the big difference though? Like I want to know, I'm curious, like just like learn a little bit more about the culture. Like what's the big difference? What did they see? We're like, oh yeah, you're different. Like what was the difference?
mostly my clothes.
Okay, the clothes.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. No style whatsoever. Maybe some plaid and some stripes, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Most of my clothes were sewn by my mom. She was a great seamstress.
Nice.
And so there's literally a time for me to fit in, and I've told Byron this. I literally took tags off of like Billabong and tried to sew them onto my homemade stuff.
No way.
Yeah. So if my mom's gonna kill me if she's watching this.
I was gonna say, did you ever find that out? Like you might be heartbroken.
I think my older sister found out. Yeah, for sure. She said, "What are you doing?"
Hopefully she didn't tell.
You know,
yeah.
And so, so I made that transition. Started to you know, play some sports there. Really liked it. Gave me some good confidence. Picked up basketball, volleyball. Those are the two big sports that I played growing up. And as time went on, I didn't play my last year of basketball. My coach and I had a little bit of a disagreement, but you know, still able to stay in shape. Played volleyball. That became my love of what I like to do, and kind of maintained that, you know, as time went along. Obviously, went to college, went to University of Hawaii, and wasn't good enough to play for the team, but still, you know, stayed as active as I could. I played intramural.
Okay, nice. Gave me a little bit of a background of kind of how you grew up, the sports that you played, you know, maybe kind of the type of person you were, like very active, probably some sort of a level of being competitive. You're playing sports at that level, and but what about your introduction to working out and lifting weights and kind of that lifestyle? Did it kind of just transfer, kind of bleed in from sports, and it was like, well, you know, this is what we do. We work out to stay in shape for sports. And then it kind of just carried on. Like how did that come about?
I think there was a transition for me because once I found out I wasn't, you know, going to play in the NBA and definitely not going to be traveling with a volleyball team, that I started to switch. I went through college, started to pick up some bad habits, right? So I started, you know, to experiment with things, started to drink. And so there's this long, maybe about a decade or so where I started to fade away from fitness now and started going more into the vices, the things that brought you immediate pleasure, as opposed to, you know, the strong work ethic that it takes to play those sports. They came easy, and I got addicted, right? And so that kind of led me down this path where there was more instant gratification. I was prioritizing that. I was prioritizing the fun of everything, and just always chasing that next dopamine hit. So they're definitely in my life. And sometimes I call myself, late to the game in fitness, because I really picked up fitness later on after moving here into Los Angeles. I lived a couple of different places, but I moved here to Los Angeles, and believe it or not, a lot of LA people are really in shape and they're really into that stuff. But I still carried those habits, came here, started working. Actually moved here to chase bad guys. My uncle at the time was an officer with LAPD. He was in the motors division. And I wanted to do that, but I was so severely out of shape that I actually had to start to get into shape to want to do something like that.
No way. So there's a motivation right there.
There was motivation there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that didn't work out. And so what I did is, at the time, I said, well, what I'm going to do? I'm going to go get a job in sales. And for probably 10 years, 15 years, almost 20 actually, I was in a sales job that all those vices that I started to like, that instant gratification, was literally put at my feet. The drugs, the drinking, the money. Hey, don't worry about it. Spend all your money. You'll make it back.
It's all good.
It was great money. And I think it all came to a head one day where I was, this was every weekend I always had to go full crazy mode, get drunk. I'd wake up at friends' houses, don't remember how I got home. And I remember feeling and I didn't know where it came from, but I felt so bad that I was sitting in my kitchen. It was a small apartment, and I was on the ground, and at this point, I was smoking a pack of cigarettes a day, drinking a half bottle of Johnny Walker Black. And I thought I was a badass. And I was sitting in the kitchen on the ground with a 9mm in my hand. And I didn't know why. And it started to, obviously I'm here, so, I didn't do anything that I would have regretted and my family would have regretted. But the wheel started to turn. Hey, maybe this is not the path. Maybe this constant chase of quick pleasure, all these dopamine hits, maybe there's something that I used to do, like when I was growing up and I enjoyed sports, and it brought a different type of feeling that maybe I needed to get back to that path. Because this path that I was living, all those vices at my feet, I started creating all these different realities. Lying was a big thing for me, because a lot like when I moved to Honolulu as a kid, I was chasing acceptance. I didn't become a cop. Sometimes I told people I was a cop. Didn't go to the military. Sometimes I told guys that I was in the military. There's people this day that still believe that stuff, all that bullshit I said. All because I was chasing this acceptance.
And you feel like, first of all, that's insane. Obviously super glad that you're here with us to be able to tell the story today. I had no idea that was even a part of your journey to getting here. So that's wild in itself. But so do you feel like you took some of those habits from Hawaii and you brought them over here and to kind of just continue? Like, I'm trying to figure out, essentially, we know how you carry yourself now, and you're coaching people and you're helping, a lot of people, and you're doing all these things, but it's not like the vices stop feeling good. Like it's always, it just feels amazing for the time being. Obviously there hits you hit a point where you crash, you hit a wall, but for the most part, it's hard to get out of that cycle. So I'm trying to understand, what was it that helped you get out of that cycle? Was it fitness? Was the kitchen situation? Was that the wall? Like, kind of, how did you get yourself out of that? I know there's a lot of people that suffered from that.
Yeah, that definitely was a catalyst, because I started to shift my thinking. And I started to realize that maybe the way I need to get out of this is to start to search out people who went through a similar journey, kind of crash and burn, and then built themselves back up. Right? And so I started that search. It was there now. Now it started to grow. And, dated a few girls through the time, met my wife. We got married in 2016. And there was I had already started going down my fitness journey, started reading all these books now about, protein and lifting and running and all that. And there was this opportunity that came up, and I finally, instead of burning all my money through the years, I actually was saving my money. And there was this opportunity came up, and my wife was like, "Hey, should we invest in a fitness business?" I'm like, "That sounds good. We're starting to work out. We're getting on our routines now." I started to feel that old feeling that when I used to play those sports was coming back, because no longer this is rented confidence. This is actually, hey, I'm getting stronger and healthier. I stopped buying as much clothes because I just started to get more in shape, right? But my wife said, "Hey, there's this fitness thing that maybe we should look into." And so in 2018, we invested in a fitness franchise, Fit Body Boot Camp, and we still own the Torrance one. And that was the next level. And after us obtaining that, just about a year or so later, I saw this thing that was on YouTube or somewhere else. And it was called the MDK Project. And right then, it's 75 Experience for Men. It was about, getting yourself to that next level. And as soon as I saw it, it triggered. These are my people. I need to go do that, right? So I went to the project, came out of that, really sorted out all these things. And all these things that I'm telling you here, I would have never told anybody. And there's still things that, the brotherhood is really strong, some personal things that I've told them. But I was able to actually do this with all that stuff and put it here.
Finally, that relief.
Right.
Yeah.
And so now, coming back from that, everything was just on now turbo mode, right? I started to just look at fitness now as the gateway for me, because you can't lie, right? You can't lie about how much you bench.
Right.
You can't lie about how fast you can run a mile.
Yeah.
Right? And because of my past, and I was doing all that bullshit in the past, I was attracted to this new truth that you can't bullshit fitness. It's either you can do it or you can't, right? Try lifting with Byron. I'm not pushing his weight. There's just no way, right?
Yeah.
I'll outrun him though, right? But there's, and you settle on what you want for your own goals, obviously. But that's why I got so attracted to this, because there's literally, you can't bullshit this stuff. It's either you did or you didn't.
Exactly.
And it shows up.
Yeah.
And so from that standpoint, fitness became just part of my life. And I realized after us investing in the business that coaching was going to be what I do. And the reason is my journey. It's hard to, for me at least, right? I'm speaking from a personal experience. It's hard for me to learn from somebody that was always given something or always had it easy. I learned the most from the guys that crashed and burned and then built themselves up brick by brick.
100%.
And so the value that I see that I can give these guys on Battle Ray, a lot of them have crashed and burned, and they're in that crash and burn stage right now, right? I want them to know that it's possible. You can build yourself back up.
Yeah.
You can get that six pack. And that's just the gateway to everything else that you're doing, because there's so much truth in that. If you can take care of yourself and love yourself, you're going to be able to serve others better.
For sure.
Your wife, your kids, you'll set the example. And that's what Battle Ready is, you're taking somebody, we're making them love themselves. They may not like themselves right now, but it's okay. We're going to have you like yourself.
It's a process.
We'll build you back up. You're going to have to embrace the suck. You're going to have to do things that is going to feel uncomfortable, but that's just part of the process.
Yeah.
And no, it's not going to happen overnight. It's a journey. But when you reach your actual destination, just like when I reached my peak fitness was in my 40s, it wasn't really the goal. It was really the whole journey. I learned so much of the things that got me there, and you appreciate the journey more than the actual goal. It's the day-by-day stuff that you had to do, all the no's that you had to say to people because you know that going to that party or doing that specific thing is not going to serve you, just like it didn't serve me.
So I was gonna ask you, because there's a lot of men who are watching this. I mean, we all have problems. So it's not even, I can't even say a lot. All of us have our own problems and our own struggles, and it's different for each person. But when you were talking specifically about the vices, and there was like a transition where you said, what you were going through, the bad habits that you had before, and then obviously you started to explain, how fitness has helped you kind of combat that. Do you think that one of the only reasons you were able to get rid of those bad habits was replacing it with good habits? Like, is that how you healed yourself?
Absolutely,
like,
yeah.
Is that kind of the answer, like, for some of the guys who are watching? Like, you need to replace it with something good. You can't just say, I'm going to stop smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. You have to replace it with something else. Like, was that what kind of the key to success?
I mean, that was one of the things that, you know, got me off of smoking. I went from smoking to vaping. The one thing that got me off of it, the habit, I started to practice running.
Mm-hmm. So you had to, yeah. Oh man,
I didn't run before in the past,
for sure.
Right,
Yeah,
and so I used to always make excuse. I'm not a runner. No. I just never done it. That's what it really was. Right. It was an excuse for me to be lazy.
Yeah.
So I started running, and I like how I was addicted to smoking. I actually got addicted to running because later on I ended up running 1,024 days in a row of a 5K or more, and so that's what I replaced it with, because you can't really smoke if you're running or want to be good at it. Mm-hmm. Sooner or later, it didn't happen overnight, obviously, right? I didn't go from, hey, cold turkey.
Right.
I'm sorry, I'm not that hero guy that some guys say, hey, I want cold. That wasn't me.
Yeah.
Slowly but surely, took a couple of months. Next thing you know, I stopped. And the new habit now was running. So yeah, exactly. I'd start just to replace things because there's only so much time in the day.
Right.
Right. So if you replace those old habits with newer ones that benefit you and that are tough and push you to find those extra gears that are not just easy, you know, the extra gears in your mind that, hey, I actually can do this. I didn't ever think I could run that many days, but I just took it one day at a time. So yeah, absolutely replace it with better habits.
Got it. Understood. And you also mentioned your wife earlier, and that you guys are partners with the Fit Body location, which I didn't know. So that's news to me. So is she almost like the female version of you when it comes to fitness, or was it kind of you guys motivated each other? Like, I'm asking because, you know, you hear a lot of guys, they'll be like, yeah, like fitness is just going to be my thing. My wife supports me in getting the body that I want, but she doesn't really want to work out or anything like that. That's not really her thing. How important is it in your mind that the couples are both, they kind of support each other, and they're also doing it together and working together as a team when it comes to accomplishing this goal, which in this case is fitness?
Yeah, my wife's my biggest supporter. I will tell you that when we first started, it was foreign to her. She never lifted. She didn't play any sports. She ran track, I believe.
Okay.
So I started working out first, and slowly but surely, I didn't say anything because I know how that works sometimes, right? You know, you just lead by example. So I just started going to the gym and say, hey, honey, why don't you come with me a couple of times? She transformed and she changed, and next thing you know, she loved doing it. And I can tell, and she can tell with me too as well, if I didn't work out or she didn't work out, we get a little...
Just even the mood, huh? Like, just like not as,
Exactly. And you start to really understand how much that can affect a person mentally, because you start worrying about all these other things that really don't matter. But when you get your lift in, you're eating right, you're doing all these things tend to even out pretty well. And she does a really good job with our clients there. She loves them. She loves people that are trying to take that same journey that we did. Because there was a time that I was 240 pounds. I'm 180 now, and my wife was also, I'm from Hawaii, and her culture, they're from Mexico, right? So big families, big food, big drama. That's what we like. And so our journey, I think, speaks, and her journey speaks to a lot of ladies and men that come in. So.
Exactly. Awesome, man. I love it. I want to ask you one more thing when it comes to your overall experience with tying your childhood together with who you are today. Is there something that, because I notice when I talk to a lot of people and just kind of get to know their story a little bit more, you can usually tell that there's something from their childhood, maybe that they don't even realize, but when they're speaking, they kind of they're almost like telling on themselves, or there's a pattern where they're like, something happened when they were young and their whole life is almost trying to either fix it, make up for it, change it, whatever it is. Is there anything like that for you, childhood, early teenage years, whatever it is, to where fitness has helped you heal it, move on, is there anything like that for you?
Yes. And for me, the loss of my father, my biological father, I think played a really large role in that. And that's why I was constantly seeking acceptance. My stepfather did come into my life, but at that time, I think the damage was a little bit done. What I needed somebody, I think, at that time was to tell me that, hey, you need to believe in yourself. You can work on your body. You can, continue down this path of fitness. Them setting the example for me, and I probably would have followed along. I think I'm a little bit late to the game on that. Now, I don't blame them, right? Because at the end of the day, we're all adults. I take personal responsibility, and that was one thing that I hung on to, was my story. That because this XYZ happened, that's why it's okay to do XYZ. It wasn't okay.
Right.
It actually put me down a really terrible path. And so getting back to the question, fitness is just the gateway, especially for men, because I believe men are very primal. We just operate better when we're fitter. Everything. And I think that's a little lost. I think people have forgotten that men just do. You take really fit guys, and it doesn't have to mean like you're, this current idea of what it is, it's too masculine or something else like that.
Right.
Just be in great shape, be able to help your family and serve people, and you'll just operate better. And that is what was missing from me. I always was seeking the Amazon Prime of dopamine, as opposed to taking to the long-term approach.
For sure.
So.
For sure. Just like like you touched on, when it came to vices and the instant gratification, all those things, I think it's hard for a lot of people when it comes to fitness, because it's like you work out, you can go as hard as you want, you go in the mirror, like, I don't see any difference. And you're going to have to do it over and over and over again, months at a time, and you're building yourself in the kitchen just as much as in the gym, and so that can be difficult to kind of find some motivation sometimes. But I honestly think that your story and things that you've went through, and leaning on your wife, you guys doing it together, and all these different things, they're so relatable for the people watching. So I think it's going to help a lot of people, man. It was great hearing your story and learning more about you and how you've come to be who you are today, man. So I appreciate you opening up.
Appreciate being here, man. Thank you so much, man.
Awesome.